Shauna the Lore Hunter, and in this video I invite you to join me on my journey to figure out what Nioh 2 is all about, and if I want to pick it up when it releases. Nioh 2 is an action RPG being developed by Team Ninja of Ninja Gaiden fame, and is a sequel to Nioh 1. I enjoyed my time with Nioh 1. I thought the combat was interesting, the system's cool, if a bit numerous, and I enjoyed the mission-based structure. However, I did not finish Nioh 1. While the game kept throwing new ways to tweak my character, the level design and enemy encounters grew stagnant for me around halfway through. The story and characters served their purpose, but the world and narrative didn't shore up my flagging interest with the levels, and I put the game down. Nioh 2 is releasing March 13th, 2020, and I decided I'd find out how Team Ninja are approaching the sequel to see if it might have the staying power Nioh lacked for me, and if what they're offering is tempting enough to pick it up day and date, or if I'll hold off and wait. I've read and watched all of the developer interviews I could get my hands on, and I've decided whether or not I'll be picking up the sequel. I've decided that I'll share my decision with you at the end, after I've shared all the information I've gathered. Let's get into it. By these headlines, you might be able to guess what the key word is when it comes to the development of Nioh 2. Nioh 2 producer Fumihiko Yasuda explained Team Ninja's overall goal for Nioh 2. My goal for Nioh 2 is a proper evolution. In the first title, although we were very happy with how it was received, there were things we couldn't accomplish at the same time. I'd like to strengthen what we did well and at the same time fix some of the issues. Creative director Tom Lee expanded upon this, stating, "With Nioh, it was our first time getting into the action RPG genre, and to be quite honest, we were a little bit cautious. This time around, with the experiences that we've gained a lot of confidence. Looking back, there were a lot of things that we didn't get to do. But this time around, the simple way to put this is, the gloves are off. We're going to go in hard, and I hope the fans are ready for it, because I think this experience is going to be close to what we really had in mind, so I can't wait for you guys to play it." So far so good. The key stamina management system and the low mid high stance weapon system are back. The plethora of customization systems have also returned, so you can tweak your character and weapon stats, as well as unlock new moves and skills. All of the weapons in Nioh are back, and the dual hatchets and switchglaive weapon types have been added. These systems worked for me in the first game, and I welcome further iteration and refinement. But my main issue with Nioh 1 was that I had all these systems to play with, but the same handful of enemies to combat in the same dark and brooding environments. Luckily, Team Ninja seems more than ready to address this concern. Yasuda explained, "Nioh 2 levels will have a lot more variation. We got feedback from Nioh 1 that a lot of the levels were quite dark and quite repetitive, and lack of enemy types was another thing. Each level will have different characters, different enemies, different colors, so it will look different. This is music to my ears. I'm excited to see more colorful areas, and I'm hoping they will differentiate themselves meaningfully in both appearance and play." And when they say they've added more enemies, it doesn't sound like they've just changed the color of some dudes and called it a day. On the PlayStation blog, Yasuda explained that Japanese people are familiar with the concept of yokai. We've grown up hearing stories about them in folklore, and they can appear in many different forms. Not all of them are enemies, some are friendly or are simply spirits that live in objects. We wanted to share that Japanese tradition with the world. That's why it's special to me. So it's not just that there will be more enemies, but that there will be more yokai enemies, which I am very down for. And it isn't just that there are more yokai enemies, but that the yokai in general are taking a much more prominent stance in the narrative and gameplay systems. Yasuda told US Gamer that, because Nioh 2 has the yokai aspect, it was a lot easier to be more imaginative and play with the yokai moves and appearances, so it will have a lot more variety. Also, depending on where you are, a small area, a spacious area, high, low, you will see different enemy types. You will see some of the older enemies from Nioh 1 as well, but there will be a lot of new ones. The yokai aspect mentioned is a new system that replaced the living weapon from Nioh 1, which involved filling up a meter to activate a limited berserker mode. In Nioh 2, the narrative justification for having yokai powers is that your character is a switchling, a person who is half human and half yokai. While playing, you can pick up and attune yokai cores from defeated yokai in order to unleash special attacks using a mana system called Anima. These special attacks will fill up the familiar Amrita meter that living weapon used, and can also be used to counter devastating enemy burst attacks, which are signaled by the enemy turning red. When the Amrita meter is full enough, you can shift into a yokai for a limited time and wreak havoc on your surroundings. Yokai form sounds like a really smart evolution of the living weapon system, but with a lot more visual flair and a fun story hook. And the burst attack and counter system reminds me of perilous attacks in Sekiro, which were a lot of fun to learn and overcome. It is also worth noting that the murky yokai realm system which impeded you in Nioh 1 will return and feature even more prominently. While the Dark Realm will continue to be a pain in the ass that you keep also away as your human, your yokai form is actually strengthened by the dark pools. This is a fun wrinkle for the system that I hope provides some interesting tactical decisions as you navigate yokai encounters. Team Ninja President Yosuke Hayashi explained that Nioh 1 was primarily about samurai versus samurai combat, and there was a bit of samurai versus yokai as well. But in Nioh 2, combat is more dynamic and colorful because you're half yokai as well. Playing with the yokai mode as a way of adding variety to combat and creating more dynamic scenarios sounds awesome. The living weapon system was relatively limited in how frequently it could be used, which made sense because it was something of a win mode. I'm hoping that yokai mode is a bit less of a win button, and more so another tool to use in combat that adds some meaningful variety. Speaking of variety, Yasuda stated, "Most people played side missions just to unlock the main missions in Nioh 1. But in Nioh 2, the side missions will have more subtle effects. Sometimes you will only be able to interact with certain characters in the side missions, which will add a little bonus to the main story. Some side missions will unlock other side missions, so I think you will see how much more versatile they are in Nioh 2. I didn't engage heavily with the side missions in Nioh 1, but I'm glad to have both narrative and mechanical incentives pushed more heavily with side missions in Nioh 2. Another big gameplay and narrative change is that you will now customize your character in Nioh 2. Nioh was an international success for Team Ninja, and they wanted to offer a better sense of identity between the player and their character in Nioh 2. Hayashi told VG247 that players all over the world can customize their characters to make them look like themselves if they like, or anything else, jumping into the story and enjoying the game as themselves. While you played William, based on the historical Englishman William Adams in Nioh 1, Team Ninja is taking even more historical liberties with your character this time around. Found on Reddit, a display at Tokyo Game Show 2019 summarizes the story. The year is 1555, about 100 years prior to the events of Nioh 1, in Sengoku, Japan. Your protagonist is, as previously mentioned, a switchling who works as a mercenary battling yokai. After fighting a yokai, the protagonist's yokai powers go berserk, but they are calmed thanks to a wandering spirit stone merchant named Tokichiro. The final line of the summary reads, "As the two set off to take the Sengoku period by storm like a pair of Nioh, the curtain rises on the tale of Hideyoshi." Toyotomi Hideyoshi was a historical daimyo in Sengoku, Japan who is considered the second great unifier of the period, succeeding Nobunaga. Nioh 2 is transforming this single character into the protagonist and the merchant Tokichiro. As I've stated previously, the story of Nioh was not one of the big draws of the game for me, but the hook of these two characters fulfilling the role of this one historical figure has grabbed my attention. At this point, I've just about made up my mind, but for the sake of completion and for those out there still on the fence, there are a couple more items to cover. As you might expect, there are no difficulty settings in Nioh 2. Hayashi explained, "I'm not against easy modes at all. When you look at Nioh and its priority, the concept is the tension of samurai combat, so it didn't quite work. It's all about the authenticity of the combat. So not this time, but I'm not against it." However, there will be online co-op as well as AI summons in Nioh 2. The Torii Gate works much like it did in Nioh 1. It is used at the shrine and will allow a player to summon up to 2 player companions this time around. New to Nioh 2 are the Benevolent Graves. Benevolent Graves are placed by players, and they allow others to summon an NPC version of their character for a time. So if you're looking for help, or looking to help, there are even more options in Nioh 2. And that is what I learned about Nioh 2. Team Ninja is trying to evolve the formula from Nioh 1, iterating on the combat and systems, adding variety with increased enemies and more distinct levels, and leaning into the folklore of the yokai in a big, fun way. For my part, I'm sold day and date. To be honest, I was sold as soon as I learned they would be expanding the presence of yokai in both gameplay and the narrative. The Nioh 1 demo sold me on the game by the cool and bizarre yokai designs, and I was so disappointed when I had seemingly seen them all in the first dozen hours. So pushing enemy variety by increasing yokai, and giving the player a system to become a yokai themselves is just too tempting for me. I can't handle it, that's awesome. And I'm hoping that maybe the story matters to me a bit more this time around. I like the character hook, but playing fast and loose with history and throwing names at me left and right just don't land for me when I don't know the subject very well, and the game isn't really trying to represent Japanese history in a meaningful way. Luckily, Ghost of Tsushima, which I did a so far video on, is tackling historical Japan in a more representative way, and will scratch my itch to play a game that immerses me into Japanese history and culture. I am more than happy for Nioh 2 to be a cool game with fun combat, where I take on a multitude of yokai, and I am looking forward to playing it on March 13th, or maybe even sooner if I decide to try the demo. Now it's your turn. Are you going to pick up Nioh 2 or wait and see? Have you participated in any of the demos? What are your thoughts about Nioh 2? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear where everyone is at with it. And if you liked this video, leave a like. This has been a bit more informal than say my so far videos, so I'd appreciate any feedback. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed my approach to talking about games, and if you're unconvinced by this video, maybe you'd be more interested in this video, or maybe this video. If you want to stay up to date on upcoming games or the occasional musing about an already released game, ding that absolutely stupid bell on YouTube so it actually tells you when I upload. Most of all, thanks for watching.